Hey everybody, Jake Reichbart here. Today I'm going to share with you a lengthy lesson excerpt. So have your guitars ready and we're going to have some fun together arranging a song. Perhaps you've seen some of my many hundreds of solo guitar arrangements I have here on YouTube, and the inspiration for these arrangements is right here behind me, as you can see. I grew up with these vinyls, and I draw pretty much from any kind of style imaginable from the pop music of the past 100 years, everything from Glenn Miller to Van Halen, Alan Holdsworth to Motown, and pretty much anything in between. Beatles, I have perhaps 25 Beatles song arrangements, 20 Steely Dan song arrangements, same for Stevie Wonder, rock, hard rock, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, and of course tons and tons of classic jazz standards from the 40s and 50s, bebop, dance tunes, movie themes. And if you want to learn how to arrange any of these songs for solo guitar, I can teach you. Just like the excerpt that you're about to watch, which comes from a lesson that runs about 90 minutes, I have nearly 200 additional titles, and they are mostly song specific. I enjoy teaching through specific songs because I can show you hands-on how I approach arranging a song. What's nice about these lessons is that I don't just tell you, do this and you're done, but rather I'll take you through 3 or 4 or 5 different ways to play the same passage. I'll work with you on dynamics, on articulation, and 100 other things that you cannot just put to paper. As I mentioned, these lessons run approximately 90 minutes. The introduction, which runs usually 15 minutes, focuses on the right hand and rhythm, and in this introduction I go through my 3 pillars of rhythmic arranging, the first principle being melody and bass only, the second being rhythmic arpeggiation, and the third, of course, the down stroke that I play with my right hand fingernails to produce that backbeat that everybody asks me about. Nevertheless, I do have 2 main method lessons. The first one, how to arrange any song for solo guitar, running 2 hours, and also an introduction to fingerstyle guitar and solo guitar arranging, running 2 hours and 40 minutes. The information about these lessons, the cost, my full lesson list, as well as a link to the full performance of the song that we're working on today is below in the information. So expand the information, take a look, and let's get started. I play this arrangement in the key of D, and I should say in general that I play it pretty much along the lines of the original in terms of style and rhythm, not necessarily the form in terms of how long I play the song. As I mentioned earlier, there is a basic AABA form, but since it's quite a bit of a long song, I may decide on the fly, depending on when and where I perform it, to go shorter or longer. But basically all the sections of the song are there, and how many of them I play depends on the circumstances. Generally speaking, you could, I guess another way to put it, you could play this arrangement along with the original record and they would kind of match up. Let's get started. The arrangement starts with a simple, very straightforward D major triad fingering in the open position, so an open D string, along with the notes A, D, and F sharp on strings 3, 2, and 1, frets 2, 3, 2. And I tend to kind of separate the notes. The D, A, and then the remaining 2 notes together. The second position can be viewed as not be viewed as, it is in fact a G minor chord over D. So it's the same D that we've been carrying from the first D chord. And musically what happens is that the D, both D notes, this D as well as this one, remain in place, but the notes A and F sharp each go up half a step. So to achieve that with a fingering, you just use your first finger and lay it across the upper 3 strings in the 3rd fret, along with the open D. repeat the D chord. I take this shape and I shift it all the way to the 7th fret. So I continue to play a D in the bass, but now this triad is no longer a D, of course. It is a G triad with D in the bass. So the fingering is exactly the same. So now I play the notes D, G, and B on strings 3, 2, 1, frets 7, 8, 7. This position, I only figured it out recently, or just before I posted my version online. I always figured it was a straight D triad, but upon close listening, I kind of discovered that he kind of tends to hold that extra suspension there. So I'll give you both scenarios. If it was just a straight D triad, it would be this. So still the open D, along with the notes A, F sharp, and D on strings 1, 2, 3, frets 5, 7, 7. Except for, as I said, instead of playing this F sharp, you play the G, which is like a suspended sus chord, as they call it. It's good to practice kind of, or play these two back and forth to hear the difference in sound. Putting it together from the top. And you notice that sometimes I'll arpeggiate, and that goes to that introduction that I mentioned, instead of just playing. Which is okay too, I guess, because it's the introduction and it might not have that rhythm yet, but I tend to automatically kind of, it's already built into what I do, that I you hear that I'm adding that arpeggiation. It's just something that's a habit for me by now. Anyway. Repeat. So basically the entire introduction repeats twice. Exactly. Again. Other than just before going to the melody, I play this little movement, which I also hear him doing, and which I didn't used to do until I kind of studied it a little bit closer. So it's a little trill in time, in 16th notes. The notes are the F sharp, to E, and back on the 2nd string, frets 7, 5, 7. And still having the D in the bass. So far, everything had the D in the bass. And then I play these two together, the F sharp with the D. If you wanted to, you can add also this D. That doesn't really need it. And at the exact moment when I play these two notes together, that's the downbeat of the song. So 1, don't go change. So in other words, the first melody note does not occur on the first beat. Actually, it occurs on the second beat. The don't go changing. So I'll repeat the entire introduction and we'll continue. And a couple of guitaristic things that I might have done is I kind of maybe did a little slide, not that slow, but because it's a guitar, so why not do guitar things? And in between things, I let the D, the bass note, sustain as long as I can in between plucks. I never stop it or make it short. And I use it to mark. It's kind of also a time marker, a beat marker. Okay. That's our downbeat.